Imagine being so powerful that entire sects feared your name. One man, one spear, and a path soaked in blood. This was the rise of the unrivaled spear demon. The story began with Shuji facing an entire army alone. Despite the overwhelming numbers before him, he remained completely unfazed. While casually eating a potato, he tossed it aside and immediately slaughtered the soldiers charging at him. Some were decapitated, while others were sliced clean in half. Terrified by his overwhelming strength, the remaining soldiers decided to attack all at once. However, Shuji effortlessly dodged every strike before suddenly appearing above the commander and impaling his head with a spear. Panic spread through the battlefield as the soldiers desperately thrust their spears toward him. But Shuji nimbly avoided every attack and wiped them out with a single slash. Soon after the battle ended, all the injuries he had sustained finally caught up to him. Realizing that this was the end of his life, Shuji prepared to die. However, instead of fading away, he was suddenly reincarnated. The scene then shifted to a forest, where Shuji awoke beneath a tree. He quickly realized that he had not been reborn as a baby. After looking at his reflection, he discovered that he had reincarnated as a teenager instead. Before he could fully process the situation, he noticed a battle taking place nearby. The fighters belonged to the Howling Tiger Escort Bureau. Ironically, Shuji had died on a battlefield only to reincarnate into another one. Suddenly, an ugly bandit appeared behind him and questioned why a brat like Shuji was wandering around the battlefield. Believing Shuji to be harmless, the bandit decided to kill him immediately. Unfortunately for him, Shuji had once been the spear demon, and losing to a mere bandit was impossible. The bandit thrust his spear forward, but Shuji caught it barehanded and calmly remarked that the man's movements were far too predictable. He then wrenched the spear from the bandit's grip and drove it straight through his chest, killing him instantly. Only minutes after reincarnating, Shuji had already taken a life. He noted to himself that although he no longer possessed the monstrous power from his previous life, his martial arts skills were still intact, and that alone was enough for him to dominate others. Casually slinging the corpse-filled spear over his shoulder, Shuji began walking away. However, another bandit, an archer, was hiding behind a tree, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. While Shuji wondered whether he had somehow traveled into the past, the archer leaped out and fired an arrow directly at his head. Thinking he had succeeded, the archer smugly celebrated too early. In the next moment, he saw the tip of a spear flying toward him before he was also impaled, joining the growing collection of corpses skewered on Shuji's weapon. Shuji casually remarked that the situation reminded him of the good old days. Still carrying the bodies on his spear, he calmly walked toward the center of the battlefield. The soldiers watching him were horrified and began referring to him as a madman. To be fair, his methods were undeniably brutal. At that moment, a massive muscular man appeared and introduced himself as the leader of the forest bandits. Rather than feeling intimidated, Shuji admitted that he was actually looking forward to the fight. The bandit leader confidently declared that he would wipe the smile off Shuji's face before throwing his axe directly at him. Unfortunately, that turned out to be one of the dumbest decisions imaginable. Shuji casually tilted his head and dodged the axe with ease. Realizing that the bandit leader had nothing more to offer, he instantly separated the man's head from his shoulders. Complaining that the spear felt too light, Shuji added yet another corpse to his collection. After witnessing such terrifying brutality, the remaining bandits fled while screaming that he was a monster. Suddenly, ghost-like spirits began emerging from the corpses skewered on Shuji's spear. Later that night, in another part of the forest, the Howling Tiger Escort Bureau and the remaining forest bandits were still fighting fiercely. During the chaos, Shuji appeared on the battlefield while radiating a deathly aura that resembled a soul reaper. The moment people saw him approaching, many immediately ran away in fear. The spirits attached to Shuji's spear informed him that the man fighting in the distance had once been their boss. They begged Shuji to bring him over to their side because he was strong enough to join them. With a grin on his face, Shuji declared that he would gladly grant their wish. Meanwhile, the bandit boss was enjoying the thrill of battle when someone suddenly called his name from behind. Annoyed that anyone would dare address him so casually, he turned around only to be met by a devastating attack powerful enough to slam him into the ground even after blocking it. Shuji stood before him while emitting an ominous aura. Trembling in fear, the bandit boss questioned what exactly Shuji was. The spirits then mocked the boss for being the only one still alive and invited him to join them. Terrified beyond belief, the bandit leader wondered if Shuji was some kind of demon. A second later, Shuji swiftly beheaded him. Apparently, the main character possessed a talent for one-shotting everyone he fought. Shuji then mentioned an old technique he had not used in a long time. By calling a person's name 3 times, he could supposedly send their soul directly to the underworld. The story then shifted into a flashback from Shuji's past life. Covered in blood and hanging onto the edge of a cliff, Shuji complained about how all the dangerous scouting missions were dumped on him simply because he was a rookie soldier. Sitting beside a rock, he cursed the military and bitterly remarked that joining the army felt no different from becoming a slave. Suddenly, 2 crimson eyes appeared behind him. Sensing the terrifying presence, Shuji immediately warned himself not to turn around. He wondered whether the creature behind him was a tiger or a ghost. The mysterious figure asked why Shuji struggled so desperately just to survive. He claimed that Shuji's life was worth less than a bug's and proposed a gamble, promising that he could completely change Shuji's life. Shuji turned around skeptically and questioned why he should trust such ridiculous words. The figure, now revealed to be a strange old man, praised Shuji for his courage before asking for his name. This connected directly to the terrifying technique Shuji had mentioned earlier. Shuji answered, "Shuji." The old man asked again. Annoyed, Shuji repeated his name once more. When the old man asked a third time, he suddenly grabbed Shuji by the neck and held him over the cliff before explaining that if there was ever someone Shuji wanted dead, he only needed to ask for their name 3 times. Regardless of the answer, he would gain the power to kill them. Shuji later revealed that this terrifying man was the master who had granted him demonic power. Back in the present, Shuji continued slaughtering every bandit who rushed toward him. The terrified enemies called him a monster and begged for him to die, but they all met the same gruesome fate. Eventually, Shuji planted his spear into the ground and noticed something strange. In his previous life, the demonic power inside his dantian had slowly corrupted his body and mind. Yet now, instead of feeling consumed, he actually felt refreshed. Closing his eyes, Shuji circulated the energy within both his lower and upper dantians before opening them in shock. He suddenly remembered something important. Before obtaining demonic power in his previous life, he had already mastered the Miao tribe's breathing technique as a child. That technique preserved both his sanity and mental clarity. He then recalled his master once warning him that nobody could maintain their sanity after fully mastering demonic power. Shuji smirked while imagining the expression on his master's face if he ever discovered the truth. At that moment, members of the Howling Tiger Escort Bureau approached and thanked Shuji for saving them. Their captain admitted that although Shuji was simply standing still, the pressure he emitted was overwhelming. Unwilling to let someone so powerful leave, she asked if he would lend them his strength. Shuji flatly refused. As he prepared to leave, the captain quickly handed him a golden token belonging to the Tiger Pit sect and told him they would always welcome him. The moment Shuji heard the sect's name, memories resurfaced. He remembered that the Tiger Pit sect had once been honest and righteous, though they later disappeared completely. After accepting the token, Shuji decided to take one of their horses. The captain immediately warned him that the horse had a terrible temper. To everyone's shock, however, the horse did not attack Shuji. Instead, it literally peed itself in fear. One of the men commented that Shuji truly looked like a boss-level character. Embarrassed by the disrespectful remark, the captain immediately drew her sword and threatened the man for speaking carelessly about their benefactor. She later noticed that Shuji used military spear techniques and assumed he must have been connected to an important military family. Secretly, she hoped he would someday help the Tiger Pit sect during its coming crisis and save them from the Black Dao sect. Meanwhile, Shuji casually threatened the terrified horse, warning that he would cut it off if it continued peeing. Afterward, he began thinking about someone named Ko Aiku. Another flashback followed. Back in his previous life, Shuji had once been bullied by senior soldiers demanding tribute from rookies. One of them kicked Shuji and insisted that newcomers had to surrender their food to seniors. Just then, a man carrying a potato stepped forward and declared that the demand was ridiculous. The senior threatened him, but before he could react, the potato smashed directly into his face. In the blink of an eye, the newcomer appeared before the senior and brutally beat him unconscious. He then handed Shuji a potato and told him to eat if he wanted to survive. That man was Ko Aiku, and thus their friendship began. The story then returned to the moment Shuji first encountered his terrifying master. While the old man held Shuji over the edge of the cliff, Ko Aiku appeared from above and threatened to throw a flare at him if he did not release Shuji immediately. Shuji desperately shouted for Aiku to run away, but Aiku refused to abandon him. The old man found their loyalty amusing and finally admitted that he had no intention of killing them. Instead, he proposed a deal. If the two boys gathered medicinal herbs capable of healing his internal injuries, he would teach them the power necessary to survive on the battlefield. After exchanging glances, Shuji and Aiku reluctantly agreed. From that moment onward, the mysterious old man became their master. He first taught them a forbidden demonic art known as the unrestrained demon art. According to him, the technique absorbed the grudges of the dead to increase one's strength. The cultivation method was divided into 3 stages: the compression stage, the tempering stage, and the transcendence stage, with each stage containing 10 levels. The old man explained that once someone reached the compression stage, they would begin releasing demonic energy like steam. At the tempering stage, their blood would become poisonous, and whenever they released demonic energy, it would appear as though blood was spraying from their body. He further revealed that he himself had already reached the 4th level of the transcendence stage, a realm powerful enough to trample the entire world beneath his feet. Because of this overwhelming power, concepts such as good, evil, and even demonic nature had become meaningless to him. He then ordered Shuji and Aiku to engrave his teachings into their hearts before commanding them to enter the battlefield and slaughter endlessly. Time passed, and eventually their final mission arrived. They were ordered to retrieve a 100-year-old snow ginseng. Aiku worried that their current strength was insufficient for such a dangerous task, and requested that their master open Shuji's ren and do meridians first. The master agreed, while Aiku insisted that Shuji should go ahead alone. Although Shuji argued against the decision, he ultimately departed for the mission. When he finally returned, he was covered in blood and barely standing. However, the scene waiting for him was far worse than any wound he had sustained. Their master's head had been severed from his body. Nearby, Aiku was lying on the ground, drenched in blood and suffering from fatal injuries. Shuji rushed toward him and held him in his arms. With his dying breath, Aiku revealed the horrifying truth. Their master had intended to kill them from the very beginning, so they had no choice but to strike first. Shuji then realized why Aiku had insisted on sending him away earlier. Aiku weakly smiled and explained that he had saved Shuji long ago because Shuji was once connected to the Tiger Pit sect and had always spoken kindly about the sect leader and his wife. Before dying, Aiku begged Shuji that if he ever had the chance, he should avenge him. Back in the present, Shuji silently vowed that in this new life, such tragedy would never happen again. His first goal was to prevent the destruction of the Tiger Pit sect. Since he had already saved members of the Tiger Escort Bureau earlier, he believed the future had already begun changing. Not long afterward, Shuji finally arrived at the gates of the Tiger Pit sect. Spotting a servant nearby, he politely called out and asked a question. Unfortunately, the servant felt insulted that a nobody dared to summon him and immediately smacked Shuji on the head before attempting to walk away. However, Shuji instantly grabbed him and forced him onto his knees. He calmly asked whether the sect leader was named Ko-Jina and whether his wife was named Sha-Jin. The servant nervously confirmed both names. Shuji then asked about their son, Ko-Aiku. The servant immediately denied it. Confused, Shuji wondered whether his regression had somehow altered reality itself. Before the servant could finish explaining, Shuji grabbed him by the collar and threatened him, saying that if he entered the sect and found someone named Ko-Aiku, there would be consequences. Panicking, the servant quickly clarified the misunderstanding. The Tiger Pit sect did not have a son named Ko-Aiku. They had a daughter. Shuji froze in disbelief. The possibility that Aiku had secretly been a girl during his previous life sounded utterly ridiculous to him. Since using the golden token too early would interfere with his plans, Shuji decided not to reveal his identity yet. At that moment, another servant suddenly opened the gates. Mistaking Shuji for a stable worker, the man grabbed him by the collar and dragged him inside while scolding him for neglecting his duties. Although Shuji initially tried to explain the misunderstanding, he quickly realized that the situation actually worked perfectly in his favor, so he decided to play along. Soon, he arrived at the Tiger Pit sect stables. The stable manager introduced himself as Wu Tian and explained that Shuji's duties would include cleaning manure and feeding horses. According to him, stable work was still better than living homeless. When Shuji calmly stated that they had never met before, Wu Tian became annoyed and accused him of having terrible memory problems. While the manager continued ranting, Shuji suddenly noticed a horse charging wildly toward them. He immediately stepped aside. Unfortunately, the stable manager was not so lucky. The horse violently trampled him into the ground. Moments later, two men appeared nearby. One of them carried a fan and casually remarked that he had spent enough money on the horse to buy an entire mansion, yet it still remained difficult to control. The second man pointed out that one of the stable workers had been injured, but the fan-wielding man dismissively replied that stable boys were worth less than dogs. Hearing this, the stable workers quietly referred to him as the perverted Zhao from the Zhao clan manor. The moment Shuji heard the name, his eyes narrowed. He immediately remembered Aiku mentioning that this very man had orchestrated the downfall of the Tiger Pit sect in the future. At that instant, Zhao earned a place on Shuji's death list. Zhao arrogantly complained that merely being touched by stable workers made his clothes feel filthy. Just then, the sect leader arrived and asked why they had suddenly appeared at the Tiger Pit sect. With a shameless grin, Zhao bowed and claimed that he had come to visit his future bride. The sect leader coldly replied that he did not remember approving any engagement. However, Zhao boldly revealed that he intended to marry Ko Aiku once she turned 16. He even claimed that village children had already begun singing songs celebrating their future wedding. The sect leader's face twisted with rage as he demanded to know whether Zhao had been spreading such rumors personally. Pretending innocence, Zhao mocked the Tiger Pit sect while claiming that the Zhao clan was far inferior to them. He sarcastically questioned whether the sect leader truly believed he would go so far simply to marry the daughter of the Tiger Pit sect. Before the sect leader could explode with anger, a calm and gentle voice interrupted them. Ko Aiku herself appeared. She firmly stated that there would never be any engagement between their families and advised Zhao to find another woman instead. The moment Zhao saw her, he immediately began blushing. However, despite his embarrassment, Aiku repeated that she had absolutely no intention of marrying him. As she and her father walked away, Zhao's expression darkened. He mocked the Tiger Pit sect for continuing to act prideful despite clearly being bankrupt. While leaving, Zhao admitted to his subordinate that they had originally only stopped by on their way to a brothel. Nevertheless, after seeing Aiku in person, he became even more obsessed with obtaining her. According to him, a woman that beautiful but lacking power or wealth was destined for a tragic fate. When Zhao attempted to mount his horse, however, something unexpected happened. The horse suddenly collapsed to the ground while foaming at the mouth. Hidden nearby, Shuji silently watched the scene unfold. In his hand was the horse's liver. Using the fox claw technique, he had secretly removed it without leaving any visible wound. Thinking about everything Zhao had done to Aiku in the previous timeline, Shuji crushed the liver in his hand until it exploded. Then, without another word, he disappeared into the darkness. Later that night, Shuji wandered through the sect grounds while quietly planning his next move. As he passed through the streets, he overheard a husband and wife arguing inside a nearby house, but he paid them no attention. Eventually, he arrived before an abandoned workshop marked with a large X sign, warning others not to enter. Ignoring the warning completely, Shuji pushed the gate open and stepped inside. An old blacksmith immediately questioned his identity and coldly informed him that he had already retired. Without even looking at Shuji properly, the man ordered him to leave and find another forge. Shuji calmly sat down and replied that he already knew all of that. The blacksmith frowned, clearly irritated by the unexpected visitor. Without wasting any time, Shuji began listing the items he wanted forged. He requested a hammer 17 sun long, 4 sun in circumference, with a perfectly spherical head. Since 1 sun equaled roughly 3 centimeters, the weapon would be massive. He also instructed the blacksmith to keep the weight balanced in Jin. Confused, the blacksmith pointed out that such a hammer could not possibly be used for normal construction work. Shuji casually replied that it was never meant for nails in the first place. He then continued his order, requesting an 18.5 sun crocodile leather shaft along with a heavily reinforced spear durable enough for brutal combat. The blacksmith immediately realized that Shuji was preparing for war. When he asked what kind of weapon Shuji truly wanted, Shuji answered with only one word: a spear. The old man then swung his walking stick to the left, revealing a hidden cabinet containing a beautifully forged spear. He explained that it would still require an entire day of sharpening before it was ready. Shuji simply stated that he could wait. Next, he asked whether the blacksmith possessed any hidden weapons. With another swing of his staff, the box Shuji was sitting on suddenly opened, revealing countless iron thorn spikes hidden inside. Satisfied, Shuji announced that he would take all of them. The blacksmith finally asked where the weapons should be delivered, but Shuji replied that he would personally return for them later. At last, the blacksmith brought up the price. However, instead of naming an amount of money, blood suddenly filled his eyes as he revealed that his daughter had died only 3 days earlier. Blood vessels burst in his eyes as he asked Shuji whether he could bring her back. After a long silence, the old man apologized and admitted that Shuji's overwhelming aura made him seem more like a ghost than a living person. Then, with hatred burning in his eyes, the blacksmith begged Shuji to kill the people responsible for his daughter's death. Shuji calmly asked who they were. The blacksmith answered with only 3 words, "The Black Tao Sect." Shuji immediately stood up to leave. Panicking, the blacksmith shouted that there were 4 specific individuals responsible, but before he could explain further, Shuji released a wave of demonic energy so intense that the air itself grew heavy. Coldly, he declared that there was no need to mention names, because he intended to kill every single one of them anyway. Before departing, Shuji suddenly asked whether the blacksmith possessed any poison. Although confused about why a blacksmith would own poison, the old man eventually pulled out a small container and tossed it toward him. He also handed over a bare hide and informed Shuji that the container contains deadly poison created by the Miao tribe. After inspecting it, Shuji casually remarked that the blacksmith had clearly been scammed because the poison quality was poor. The old man awkwardly admitted that he suspected as much. Even so, Shuji decided to take it anyway, stating that it was not entirely useless. As he prepared to leave, his eyes landed on a strange bone lying in the corner of the forge. He then calmly asked if he could borrow it for a while. After Shuji disappeared into the night, the blacksmith sat there silently, wondering whether the young man had truly been human. Still ghost or not, he decided that as long as his daughter was avenged, any price would be worth paying. Soon afterward, Shuji arrived at the main gates of the Black Tao sect. The guards stopped him, informing him that he couldn't pass. One of them noticed the strange bone in Shuji's hand and mockingly asked what it was supposed to be. Before the man could even react, Shuji smashed the bone directly into his chin. The guard collapsed instantly. At the same time, demonic energy erupted from Shuji's body as he advanced toward the remaining guards. Using nothing but the bone as a weapon, he mercilessly beat them down one after another. Swinging the bone left and right, Shuji casually commented that it was surprisingly useful. Soon, bodies littered the entrance. One terrified guard froze in place after witnessing the massacre, but Shuji simply walked up to him and killed him in a single strike as well. The commotion quickly attracted the attention of 4 elite members of the Black Tao sect. One of them complained that Shuji had interrupted his sleep, while another confidently stated that there was no need to alert the sect leader because they could deal with the intruder themselves. The moment Shuji saw them, he recognized them as the exact 4 people responsible for the blacksmith's daughter's death. Without hesitation, he rushed forward and brutally kicked the first man in the most painful place imaginable. As the man collapsed screaming, Shuji instantly dashed toward the second elite and drove his fingers directly into the man's eyes. Leaving both men writhing in agony, Shuji turned toward the remaining 2 elites. Unlike their companions, these 2 immediately realized that Shuji was monstrously dangerous and attacked together. However, Shuji calmly hurled the bone at the faster one, smashing him directly in the face before catching the rebounding bone again midair. He then leaped toward the blinded man and finished him off without mercy. Meanwhile, the elite whose lower body had nearly been destroyed roared in rage and charged recklessly at Shuji. Shuji effortlessly jumped backward before smashing a jar directly into the man's face. As the man clutched his bleeding face in agony, Shuji rushed forward once more and took him down instantly. Only 1 elite remained alive. Terrified beyond reason, the last survivor admitted that he had never seen anyone fight with such vicious brutality before. Looking directly at Shuji, he called him a monster. Ironically, almost everyone Shuji encountered eventually came to the same conclusion. Overcome with fear, the final elite with Stroke on the side end blasted a hole through the nearby wall. Realizing death was unavoidable, the man shakily demanded to know who had sent Shuji. As Shuji raised the bone above his head, he coldly answered with only 2 words. The blacksmith. That's all for today. I hope you liked it. If you did, give the video a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button.